I know it takes a village. It really does. And one person can't be the everything. And so it's really important for providers and our kiddos to be connected as best as possible to all of the resources. And then I can help point people in the right direction of, okay, I know a resource in this area or things of that nature. But, there's a lot of people in Region 6 that do a lot of great work. And sometimes it's just helping people connect the dots so that we can better serve our young people.
Welcome to the Riverside Project podcast. We are mobilizing Houston to empower families and transform generations. We hope these conversations will give you a greater understanding of the issues facing our community and inspire you to find your place along the river. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Riverside Project podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Alina White. Alina is the State Office Extended Foster Care and Supervised Independent Living Program Lead at the Department of Family and Protective Services. Since joining the department in 2012, she has served in multiple roles supporting youth and young adults transitioning out of foster care. She is passionate about improving services and programs that help young people successfully navigate adulthood. Alina, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you do at the department. Department of Family Protective Services is also, as many people know or would know it as CPS. You work within that department in this very particular role. What is it that you do?
So I'd say I do a little bit of everything. I oversee our extended foster care and SIL program, but what that looks like is different day to day. So some days it's visiting potential providers to just kind of show them the ropes and talk to them about, what this is, what our young people need, and, how they can and truly support this population. Some days it's doing training with, caseworkers, attorneys, judges, things of that nature. And then sometimes it's just administrative and it's reviewing SEAL applications for our young people. It just varies.
It just varies. Yeah. Share a little bit about, extended foster care. One, I think for many people in the population, I didn't know what extended foster care was. Many people know that kids age out of foster care at 18, but they don't know what extended foster care means. And then supervised independent living, or SIL, as some people say. What does that mean? And what are those types of places?
So extended foster care, one, I can give a shout out to the state of Texas. Not all states have an extended foster care program. So it's kind of a safety net, right? It's a voluntary program for young adults that are 18 to 21, sometimes 22, depending on if they're still in high school. So it's a voluntary program where young people can continue to reside in a paid placement by CPS. What SIL is an option, a type of extended foster care. And so there's varying settings of extended foster care. You've got foster homes, SIL, you've got some emergency shelters that offer extended foster care, and then I'd say group homes. There's a lot of different types of settings. So extended foster care is the program, and SIL is one of those settings that fall under that extended foster care umbrella.
Okay. Why do young adults sometimes choose extended foster care? So we hear many say, I'm done with the system. I don't want to be in it anymore. Or why would someone who is in that population or at that 18-year mark that would choose, what are the benefits, or why would they do that or not do that?
So the why varies. I'd say it's a beneficial program because it has that safety net, right? A lot of us, when we turn 18, if you hadn't had child welfare experience, it's a lot. It's a lot just to turn 18 and you're thinking, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And so extended foster care, again, is the safety net for young people so that they can have an opportunity to kind of get their grounding, build a foundation. Eligibility or requirements mean, they're going to work or they're going to school. They're really trying to kind of find themselves. And so it's an opportunity for them to do that with a safety net, depending on the type of setting that they go into. If it's a foster home, well, you're just with your traditional foster parents. But if you are, ready to have a bit more independence and you're ready for an independent living program like SIL, Well, there's no supervision. You're pretty much going and coming as you please. But there's a case management option that case manager is there to help you with your goals and really like plan out your future and your next steps. So those are kind of some of the pluses of extended foster care and why we see our young people choose to enter into it.
Are there reasons why kids don't choose to do it?
What you said, they're done with CPS. They oftentimes will want to go back to their family of origin or friends. They just want to be done with the system, or they have the belief that it has to have as much oversight as what they've experienced in the past.
Sure.
And so we hear a lot of that, and we're as an agency looking at ways that we can expose youth or young people sooner to what extended foster care is. We're doing programs called, I call it the SEAL Open House Tours. We have one coming up June 27th as an opportunity to expose young people that are currently in care to what's out there, because I had a young person talk to me a couple of years ago. She's one of our youth specialists in Region 6 about why kids choose not to go into extended foster care. And she said, you guys just talk about it. You're just always telling us about things, but you never show us. And so when she shared that with me, I thought, you're absolutely right. No one, including myself when I was that age, wanted adults to just talk. And so, through that conversation with her, I said, okay, we're gonna show, right? And so the supervised independent living open house tours are that opportunity. We've got SILs from across the state that essentially open their doors and allow young people, just as we would when we're apartment searching, to interview them, to see, where am I going to live? What do you offer? Ask the questions, look at what's around, right? And kind of get that exposure for themselves so that they can see, okay, extended foster care is an option. I can live independently and kind of, I guess, lessen even the anxiety of what am I going to do when I turn 18?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very insightful, going back to what you said with the youth specialist, saying I'm tired of people telling me what to do and not showing me how to do it. Gosh, that's easy to fall into even as just a parent, but I can see that from their perspective. What they're asking for often is like some level of connection, right? I need a person, I need an actual warm body next to me doing something rather than just like sitting down and being told over and over again. It's really insightful. Yeah, I wish that we had more opportunities and more people to step into those types of roles.
Absolutely. We have a saying on our team. I'm on the Transitional Living Services team at State Office, and, we say nothing about us without us. And that comes from our, State Office youth specialist. We want young people to be at the forefront of their cases, of where they want to live and things of that nature. Because if they haven't bought into it and if it's not what they want, what are we even doing? Yeah.
I want to dig more into that, but I also want to go back and know from you personally, why child welfare? How did you get into this space? I know, I met you when you were in a totally different role because you've been at the department and you're so good at what you do. And so I think you get pulled in different directions and your passion pulls you in different directions. But I'd love to hear how you came to be working at the department and in this specific type of role.
So I think it's always been something in me, right? It's something that I think naturally was there. But I'd say it's pulled from, it's my family. So my mom's adopted, my dad's adopted, my uncle is adopted. And when I was 15 or 16, I saw two little girls in the newspaper. And I said, Mommy, they look like me. And my mom and dad, we talked about adoption and things of that nature. And I was like, I want them. I want them to be my sisters. And, what teenager wants that? I don't know.
A rare breed.
Right. But, they pursued it. They went through all the things and those are my sisters,
Oh,
so
wow.
my family adopted 2 girls. And so, like I said, it's just something that's been in me and a part of me. I knew in high school that I wanted to work for CPS. And so back when I got my bachelor's degree, again, I knew this is where I wanted to go, and did my internship with CPS for my social work degree. It's just, I don't think I wanted to be anywhere else. I don't think I was called to be anywhere else.
Yeah. What was it about that news story or their picture that, like, are you able to even put words to what you saw or what you felt in that compelled you to go to your parents and say, hey, this is what we're doing as a family?
Yeah. I think you just, I think you understand that, or maybe I was raised to understand that there's people that need us at times along the way. And it can look a number of ways. And I don't know if even at that time, my mom was pursuing finding her biological family, things of that nature. And so it was a natural thing. And, they were my people. Again, it's like they looked like us. Everything, no one, I'd say from the outside looking in, even would have known that they were adopted outside of, oh, here we are, and so it was a natural fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think about your parents. I mean, I don't know many parents that if their kid came to them and said, hey, I want to adopt some children, and some might, say great, and some would be like, excuse me?
Right.
What? And to actually pursue that, and to listen in that way, and to say, oh, yeah, we'd be open to that. Let's do it as a family.
Yeah.
What an incredible...
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit to supervised independent living. You mentioned to us that, some of the young adults who are moving into that system, they have a variety of needs. We've talked on the podcast with different organizations and, their shelter needs, their felt needs just tangibly. And then there's, education, and there's mental health, and like all these things at play. How do you all help to address that aspect? Not just where are you going to live, what bed are you going to sleep on, but how do you navigate those challenges with young adults?
I think it's helping to ensure that they're connected to what's available to them, right? To make sure that they're knowledgeable and exposed to the resources available within the PAL program, ensuring that the providers that are providing SIL services are connected to community partners that are doing the work. I know, it takes a village. It really does. And one person can't be the everything. And so it's really important for providers and our kiddos to be connected as best as possible to all of the resources, or at least know, okay, I know I can contact my PAL worker, and my PAL worker has a connection to these people, or they're the end. So it's just trying to make sure that everyone's kind of equipped on a basic level of where to get that in at. And then when in doubt, call Alina, right? I get a lot of those, like such and such told me to call you, and then I can help point people in the right direction of, okay, I know a resource in this area or things of that nature. But, there's a lot of people in Region 6 that do a lot of great work. And sometimes it's just helping people connect the dots so that we can better serve our young people.
Yeah. What you mentioned community partners. What types of things can people do? We talk a lot on the podcast and just in life about, trying to bring the community along. Hey, you may not want to foster or be called to foster or to adopt, but there are so many things that the community itself can do, that churches can do, that you don't have to have a nonprofit to make a difference. And so what types of things can, your run-of-the-mill community member step into and make a meaningful difference?
I think just leaning into all of the options that are out there, right? It could be something as simple as dropping off a few gift cards, that could be utilized for incentives for young adults that are in the program. They love Uber Eats and things of that nature. It could be providing, a life skill class or a life skills training. It could be a game night just for some relief or things of that nature, something fun. It doesn't it doesn't have to be huge. And, it really doesn't have to be some grand gesture. It could literally be, I had, extra money to buy some sheets and towels, So really anybody can support this population with whatever they have. And I think that the providers and the young people would be appreciative.
Yeah. That's so good. It really does get at that idea that everyone really can do something. Like, what do you have to give? You can let us know. We can get them in contact with you. There is something that you have that people can just benefit from. And sometimes it's just a relationship, through being someone who can sit in and listen or mentor. That exists too,
Absolutely.
What are some of the misconceptions? So we know that foster youth or youth who have aged out of foster care, you hear all the things, right? Sometimes it comes from news stories. Sometimes it's just people talking, but what do you feel like are some of the biggest misconceptions for this population?
I think that, that all of them have behavioral problems, or that, just even the age group. Sometimes people don't feel like they can connect to a teen or a young adult. And I think that's very far from the truth. I think that our 17, 18, 19-year-olds are likely the most vulnerable because you're an adult, but you're kind of like not, you're kind of, I think back for myself, it's like the stupidest you can ever be in life sometimes. You're
That's
like,
true.
I think that I know everything, but you realize you just don't. And so I think that there's a misconception that they don't want the relationship, and what data shows is that the relationship that they can have with someone is what could set them apart, So that's how
it's the trajectory change.
Yeah, improve outcomes and things of that nature, is if they had a solid connection with someone.
Yeah, and someone who's not really just paid to be there, a social worker, the case manager, the house parent, the therapist, like someone who chooses to be there and to stay.
Yeah.
That communicates worth, right?
Absolutely.
So you've also worked in a lot of other various roles, sort of within the court liaison side. What do you feel like in all of your experiences are the most opportunities for greater collaboration or just change, or like really making an impact and shifting the system a little bit?
I think if I think of all of the positions that I have been in, it's really what I'd said earlier, is that someone could make such an impact really everywhere. It's the community involvement that's made such a difference in every role, and bringing them in. I remember even as a kinship worker, working with someone to have these like boxes at all of the Dollar General stores, because it was a way for that kinship parent to give back. And so he was over a number of stores. And so I just think every position has, my perception has been, how can we bring the community in, to better serve this population, or just give them an open view of what is going on. Because I think that is a lot of the misconception is, oh, CPS is this way, they've got money for that, or they do that. And sometimes we just don't, and we really rely upon the community to provide that additional support.
Yeah, it's that idea that the system itself is meant to take that, and really, I think if we really got down to it, it's our whole community's job. Yes, there's a role, and yes, it is initiated many times by a system, but gosh, how many things we can prevent when the community steps in early, and we all find our place,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to go back to one of the things that you said, the nothing about us without us. I love that you all have that as kind of a mantra, and that you bring the voices of these youth and young adults into play so that you can learn things like, hey, show us, don't just tell us,
Right.
What other things have you heard from youth or young adults that have kind of shifted the trajectory of like what you're doing or given you new insight?
So a lot of the work that I do is listening to them. I am currently a part of a collaboration with the Alliance, a Texas Alliance for Children and Family Services, where they're doing an extended foster care convening across the state. And so those are opportunities for me to hear directly from the young people and hear what's happening and how things are going, what's not going, right? But then also to hear from the people that are direct care staff that are serving this population. What are they missing, or what are they not getting? And so I'd say I try to be as intentional as possible about consistently having youth voice, so that we're not creating a system that does not work, or that we're not moving with where we need to go. And sometimes that's just dropping into SIL. Sometimes it's done a lot of different ways, or sometimes you're looking at data of how states are doing or not doing and what they're doing, and could we do that here? So just a lot of exploratory work as well on how can we improve outcomes, but also listening to the young people's voice on how to make this better.
Is there anything you've been surprised by that's come up, or even just surprised by in the system itself, looking back from when you first stepped into working in foster care or in this working for the state, that has been surprising to you?
Yes and no. I think that there's been a lot of surprises and pivots. You do think things are working one way, and then you learn, oh, okay, we are not doing that well or not doing that right. And I can't point to something, specific, but I think if anything about CPS, it's like, okay, we're going to go this way now. You've got to be flexible. That's hard for some, but you've just got to be flexible, because what worked 5 years ago, 10 years ago may not be what, we need now. And I think that specifically is what I'd say is where we might be at with extended foster care. Maybe what the vision was 10 years ago is not what we're seeing the need be now.
Yeah.
And so how can we be flexible? How can we look at what other states are doing? How can we ensure that our young people are successful? And so we're just flexible.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to that misconception, one of the things that I've heard fairly recently, I heard somebody say was, that some of these young adults don't want to be successful, that they, and it's not that. I mean, maybe there are kids out there that would just say, like, I don't want to be successful, I just want to sit still. But with the help and with assistance and with programs like yours, when people coming alongside, there is like a huge opportunity for them to become independent and to successfully navigate adulthood. Sometimes they may just not believe it themselves, right?
Well, and I think we see with trauma, I don't think it's widely recognized how traumatic navigating through the child welfare system is for a young person. And you've been told, for years or decades, depending on how long somebody's been in the system, what you can and can't do, how you can and can't live, where you're living, just a number of things, not to mention just the abandonment that, there's just a lot of emotion to navigate, and it doesn't just automatically go away because you've turned 18, and again, sometimes you're meeting people where they are and they just need a break.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to catch their breath from navigating their story, and I think that is what we're seeing more of, is just some young people needing a break for a second, so that they can get their bearings and then figure out, what they want or what they need. And I think we're seeing it, not just in child welfare, right? You've got young people that are taking a gap year, right, after they, turn 18 and graduate high school. I think it's the same thought process, like, let me catch my breath.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, when you think about growing up as a young child, a teenager, and you're navigating life, but then you always have this caseworker, you have this attorney, you have, maybe therapies, you have all of the things that you're working through and all of these people and all of these voices that may be trying really hard to help, but it's just so much noise and so many things where, I think it would be hard to just be able to be a kid, despite everyone wanting you to be able to be a kid. There's just so many voices in the space that make it so noisy, That's got to be so hard.
I think so. And, our youth and care and aging out are so incredibly resilient, and so you see them kind of pick back up, but it's just a lot to navigate, I think. And, the pressures of turning 18 and where am I going to live and things of that nature. And sometimes, the choice isn't extended foster care, but we do as best as possible to make sure that they know that it's an option, and it's an option at any point from 18 to 21, right? So just because you chose no right now doesn't mean that when you turn 19 or when you're 18 and a half and you're like, I had fun for a few months and now, I want to tap into that. That's why, those connections to the people, right, are incredibly important, because then it could just be a phone call of, hey, I remember you talking a year ago about this program, tell me more. And, that's the intention, is that it's something there to kind of catch them.
Yeah, it's great. What are you most proud of in your work?
I'd say there's a lot of different little things. One of the things that I could say that I get excited to hear often is a number of years ago when I was program director, Judge Griffin and myself, he connected me with Rep Wu's chief of staff, because we were working on, we've got to have a better plan for kids and their documents, right? Texas IDs is it's a barrier.
Yeah.
And so we did, and Region 6 with one of the DPS offices, our first ID day, Texas ID Day. And so I'm very proud to say that ID Day, they have them almost every quarter, but they also have them across the state. And so I helped a judge in Dallas kind of, put into place that ID Day idea. And, again, I get excited when I hear we're doing an ID Day and we're doing an ID Day, because it's just a small thing, but it's the partnerships with state agencies that, can have a lasting impact. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Share a little bit more about that. Why is that so important? Or why was that so kind of monumental and such a need?
So it's a huge need, because, what can you do without an ID, right? And so one of my PAL workers at the time was having an issue. And, everything, ideas come out of, issues. And so she was trying to get, I don't know if she was trying to get this young person's ID for him. She'd gone 2 or 3 times and, she didn't have this thing signed right. And then that thing wasn't signed right. And it's like, it took hours, and we hear that often from foster parents, from caregivers, right? This is not a smooth system. And so, the connection with Rep Wu's office and Judge Griffin, it was very timely, right? And so just educating DPS on, or not even educating them, talking to them about, hey, this is our need. How can we make sure that, one, our workers get there with the correct documents? And I think it was just kind of along the lines of, we can do one better. And so our first ID Day, we turned in documents ahead of time. We had 2 dedicated stalls, if you will, that were, for our young people. We had an appointment slot, and they just went boom, 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 and it worked. And so those young people can have an easy, it's just an easy route to apply for a job, or, just to have, you need your documents, and so it's incredibly important just to live and to feel like you're like everyone else. You got your ID and it's easy. So it is a great partnership.
Yeah. What's the next win that you're trying to tackle?
I'd like to say something that maybe I'm putting it into the atmosphere, right?
Great.
I'd love to see, with enhancements, or not enhancements, but with us really trying to get more vocational and trade programs. We're definitely at a loss across the state of like HVAC and things of that nature. I'd really like to see more schools look at partnering with DFPS, or, if they're in an SSCC catchment area, if they've got dorms, let's partner. Let's look at your tuition waiver usage, right?
Yeah.
If you've got young people that are there, how can we make this a little bit easier so that housing isn't an issue? So I'd love to be able to say, hey, Amber, I've got, these programs with all of our, 2-year universities or colleges, or at least that we've got that option on the table.
Yeah. And I think what most people may not understand or recognize is that kids who are aging out of foster care, or who have spent time or adopted out of foster care, they are eligible for education at state universities forever, for their whole life, for as many degrees as they want.
Correct.
And yet the barriers to get there are still very difficult to navigate.
Correct.
And so it's like the opportunity is there, and we've made it possible, but there are still barriers that we have to work through. And some of that's talking to universities, helping to navigate these additional challenges so that they can not just go to school, but be successful at school, right?
Yeah.
We still have a lot of work to do. We're still working on it. But really, together, I think our community can do it.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, the last 5 questions that we typically go over in the last few minutes are just getting to know Alina. Less about just work-related things and more about who you are just as a person. And so my first question to you is, what is your go-to dessert?
I'd say marble slab ice cream, sweet cream with Oreo cookies.
Okay.
Very specific.
I like it. Very specific. Number 2, what is your favorite app on your phone right now?
Instagram.
I'm
an Instagrammer.
Yeah. What are your favorites? What are the things you like to scroll through? Is it funny videos? Is it cats? Is it dogs? Is it,
It's just a little bit of everything. Just some funny things, just random.
Just letting you check out for a few minutes.
Absolutely. A little housewives drama, don't mind. Yeah.
Some other kind of drama than the drama you have in your work all day. Number 3, if you could relive one day from your career in a good way, which day would you choose?
Which sounds kind of cheesy, but I'd say it may have been when I was leaving my program to come to state office. One of the most difficult things was to say goodbye to the region. But the impact of what, my staff shared with me about how, I had changed the program for the better and things of that nature, to take a look back and see, okay, your work or your sacrifice, things of that nature weren't in vain, that people heard you, felt you, and saw you. I think that it was pretty cool, you know.
Sounds really meaningful.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, what is your favorite Houston place to eat? This is probably a hard one. Houston is known for its really great food.
I would say I love Grace's. Grace's on Kirby. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I've been there. I'll have to
Go
check
there.
it out. Okay. Last one. What is one piece of advice you would share with a youth who has aged out in extended care who might be listening?
I'd say stay the course. I think that's what you say. It's not easy. It's not. But I think that if they've chosen to be in extended foster care, one, it's a great selection. It's kind of, again, the built-in safety net, and to take advantage of every opportunity that they can, and if they feel like they're not even getting what they can, reach out, because that's the point, right? We want to make sure that we're getting young people the services and support that they need. And, I can't say, that the provider could provide it, but we could tap into community resources or people that want to help and serve. And so I just say stay the course for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure I would expect that it's a very lonely place to be sometimes, but I know that I have seen at least that there are many organizations and many people around the city who are really wanting them to not feel alone, that they really want to be in it with them.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for spending your time with us, truly. And like I say so often, thank you for doing the work that you're doing. It is really our joy to serve the city alongside you, to pick up the phone and call you and navigate something alongside you. It truly is a joy to us. So thanks for that, and thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you.
To those listening, we hope these conversations have inspired you to find your place along the river. And we welcome you to join us in bringing hope and renewal to the city of Houston. If you'd like more information on how to get involved, please visit riversideproject.org and submit a contact form. We'll see you next time.